for joining us today. I really do appreciate it.
It's lovely to have you here this evening. And so I am just going to get started by welcoming everyone this evening. We are so honored to come and talk to you tonight from our respective locations. And Jono and I are both here this evening to chat to you about robotics and the Robotics Academy. It's such an exciting subject and we're really looking forward to tackling it. But before we do, I just wanted to give you a quick introduction as to who Advantage Learn is, since I am from Advantage Learn. And then I'll hand over to Jono to give you a quick introduction on who Resolute is. So Advantage Learn is an online and blended learning education company. And we specialize in STEM subjects and NBT preparation. So we help you prepare for your exams, for advanced program subjects, including AP Maths, AP Physics, and AP English. And then we also have various resources and test preparation. But today we are gonna chat to you about robotics specifically, which is such a cool and exciting subject. So I'm gonna hand over to Jono because he is a true expert in this space and he's gonna give you a lot more information about robotics and Resolute.
Thank you, Michaela. Always a pleasure. As mentioned, hi guys, my name is Jonathan. I am with my wonderful team, Resolute Education specifically, born and raised out of Pretoria. Resolute has quite an interesting genesis story that I'm going to chat into a little bit. Basically, the who are we and why we are. Resolute was founded by our two founders, Gareth and Rajesh, out of second year engineering, specifically at Tufts. They're both really clever cookies in their own right. They were sitting together in about first or second year and they said, hey, why do we not know more about this coming into university? If you think about it, technology has really been a part of education and really been a part of the world, from industry to your professions. However, in an education sense, it's fairly new, and really only now are we seeing major movements towards introducing it into curriculum and into the classroom. However, we have a whole bunch of students going from school into university who require this foreknowledge and this skill that can only benefit you moving forward. We're having this conversation today because I have a device and you have a device. We're having this conversation today maybe off of our cell phones. We have basic circuits around us, from the ceilings over our heads or maybe the Wi-Fi's that we're connecting on. All of these magical devices that essentially, operate as if by magic unless you understand how they came to be. For me, it's the 21st century. If you can read and write, you should be able to code. Doesn't mean if you can read, you have to be a librarian. No. If you can write, you have to be an author. No. So too, having the skill of understanding coding and robotics can only benefit you either in going into engineering or software or IT, or using it in your space. I have a friend, a personal friend of mine who I met at university. He just finished his master's in international law, which is quite incredible. He got to study in Israel, Belgium, and France, and he was specializing in, you guessed it, social media and internet law, basically the laws that govern how we can interact with each other in this cool and exciting space. An entire division of law that didn't exist several years ago because there was no need for it. So, I'm speaking to two of you, two learners here as well as parents, but for the two learners, there's two types. You either see yourself going into robotics and coding, or you see yourself doing something else, or maybe there's a third type, you're not really sure. For me, I would say open your ears, open your minds, and try and think either, could I be the next video game developer who does, the next major, Elder Scrolls or Unity development or even tablet and video game development? Or am I going into an engineering space and putting rockets on Mars, which we're going to be covering in a little bit? Or if you are the other side of the spectrum and you're saying, you know what, I've known for the longest time, I'm definitely going into medicine, or I'm definitely going into engineering, or I'm definitely going into law, try to think to yourself, how could I be a disruptor? How could I innovate? And how could I use this new world of robotics and coding to my benefit so that I could change the world as we know it right from these devices? Because in essence, what happens is a lot of the times, these devices, when they break or when they don't work, we take them to the magic men. We go to the magic men or magic women, and they're typically in a shopping center or at a support place, and we say, listen, this device is broken. I don't know if I'm going to make my meetings. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. I can't call mom for my lunchbox. Can't get around to my friends. Please fix it so I can return back to my normal life. For a week, we feel terrible until we get back our devices, and then we can continue. What I want to do is demystify robotics and coding for you and say that it is way more tangible than you think. A device such as a laptop, if you really broke it down, is a power source, inputs, processors, and outputs. Start to look at the world a little bit differently and say, you know what, it's not all just magic. In fact, I could be building these tomorrow. I just need to take that first step forward, hopefully with our academies. So to broaden your thinking and to maybe open up those cogs to say, how can I change the world with my software or my coding knowledge? I'm going to touch on 5 key examples of some really cool places that are applying robotics and coding today. I guarantee you've heard of at least 2 of them, if not all 5. And if you have heard of all 5, do let me know maybe in the chat and say, yeah, I'm a genius. In fact, you forgot this example. But of course, there's hundreds and thousands of examples of coding and robotics, because coding and robotics it's great that it's its own thing at the moment. It's a huge conversation in studies and in education, but in reality, it is so integrated in multiple disciplines, can really be involved in all spaces. I can't wait for the learners to be doing their, final year practicals or their, let's say their art portfolios. And instead of showing their art portfolio physically, they build a website to display and showcase their work or their talents. And that's just one of the examples I would use. So we're going to kick things off with a really exciting project being developed by Boston Dynamics, who are, of course, working on military grade, and I hope it doesn't scare you, robots, humanoid robots that can move and can function like us, not just for military implications, although I'm sure some of us are like, whoa, but also to provide aid to difficult to reach areas or areas that are dangerous for human beings to traverse. If you guys do take our courses, you'll start to get very familiar with a term that I'm sure you've all heard, artificial intelligence or machine learning. In essence, we teach a machine to think for itself. If you've ever played a game of chess or any other automated games against the computer, you'll be familiar with this concept. There are 2 types of artificial intelligence or machine learning. My terminology is sometimes all over the place, but in essence, it's explorative or it is guided. Now, explorative is if you left a computer to completely think for itself and you said, listen, you need to learn chess. It would have to start by Googling what is chess, so then have to figure out how the rules go. And basically, you would have to do a lot of homework and take a long time before it gets to a point where it is confident enough to start learning the game. Guided artificial intelligence is basically setting parameters, i.e., listen, Mr. Robot, these are your legs. They're going to go underneath you. These are your arms. You're going to move them to negotiate balance. From there, the engineer, you can actually see, is self-correcting or assisting to correct this bot in 2016, has gone on to develop these incredible bots here on the right in 2021. Something interesting about technology is that it is exponentially growing. And what I mean by that is the innovations we're making really are incredible and amplifying at an incredible rate. And hopefully, if it's hit and miss with my videos, this video plays, and maybe Michaela will let me know if you hear it. It really is incredible to see what Boston Dynamics has achieved so far. I'm going to make sure that we share this video with our participants. And if you want to, after this chat, maybe go on Boston Dynamics and check out. A lot of what we take for granted, our incredible bodies, is the way that we can move through space. With this robot in particular, it's maybe so surreal that we don't realize how complex it actually is, that to negotiate all these movements in all these spaces, a lot of complex thinking is going into these mechanics. The engineers over in Boston Dynamics love showing off, so they release videos, if not daily, weekly, of new songs, new choreography, of all the bots that are developed at this level. And in fact, you can see that they introduced a few when they start to dance in tandem. And the robots are actually recognizing each other to make sure that they're doing choreography in space. I'm a huge proponent of the fact that we are not replacing life, we are flattering life. Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. So what do we do as humans? As soon as we build something, we try to make it look like us or things we admire, like this awesome bot down over here. I really encourage you guys to go check out Boston Dynamics video on YouTube. They really have some awesome stuff going on. All right, moving on to our next example. I'm sure at least some of you have heard of a guy who goes by the name of Elon Musk, and he's involved with many projects, including one called SpaceX. Now, SpaceX is really trying to push the frontier on space. It was a huge inspiration for Elon growing up here in Pretoria. And there's several projects that he has running. For example, the self-landing rockets. Typically with space travel, it's crazy to say that, but typically with space travel, we send millions of dollars worth of equipment into the sky and then attempt to salvage what crashes back into the ground when it returns into orbit. Now, if any of us know anything about finances, this is not the optimal way to, navigate your personal finances or indeed that of your funding of your project. Through complex machine learning, these rockets are able to self-correct and self-land, essentially preserving thousands, if not millions of dollars worth of equipment for that reorbiting into the atmosphere or just doing pilots to come back. You can see this stream of satellites as you're heading out to the bottom left. Yes, that is satellites. And what Elon is experimenting with, and I'll try to find the name for you guys maybe a little after this, is he is sending satellites into space to create a low-flying satellite network. The goal, you might ask, he wants to provide free internet for the globe. I mentioned that term being a disruptor earlier, and imagine disrupting entire industries of data and mobile networks by saying, listen, just hook up to SpaceX, they're going to sort you guys out. This was obviously in concept, but very real, and each one of these tiny dots is actually the size of a 6 or 7 foot human in diameter, which is quite crazy to think. And it wouldn't actually interfere with the night sky. It would be as similar to looking up at the night sky as it is now, only you won't have pesky data problems. Another project that Elon Musk is really heavily involved with, and I'm sure you guys will pick up on a trend, Gareth, our head of innovation, is actually very into Elon Musk and all of his projects, and why wouldn't you be? He is, of course, involved with Mars. It's his ambition, or his life's ambition, to either see himself go to Mars or send other people to Mars, populate Mars as a second colony. Now, if we leave rockets and go into Mars, it raises a very pertinent question. How do we build society on Mars? If you were to get there and try to set up things and then try to mine yourself, it would be very unsafe and time consuming, and you may unfortunately run out of oxygen before you actually get any work done. However, if you try to fly everything you require up from Earth, for every, I think it's a liter of rocket fuel, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, and for every, I think, a kilogram of hardware that you send up, it requires that rocket fuel. So the dilemma is solved by actually sending up 3D printers. Yes, 3D printers, something that I thought personally was just a fun toy to maybe build figurines or print some cool knickknacks, is actually being applied to farming minerals on Mars so that it can start printing buildings for us. So by the time the colonists get across, they can actually go into the Mars station without a person having lifted a finger to build. It really is quite incredible, and really thinking outside the box from our boy Elon. A little closer to home, we're looking at the technological implications on people. And one particular innovation called Neuralink. Once again, we're with our boy Elon Musk. Elon has taken a look at how he could apply robotics and coding into the body, and specifically addressing degenerative issues that we're all familiar with, such as dementia or Alzheimer's. For me, Alzheimer's actually runs in my family, and it is a genuine concern about the mental health of us and our loved ones. Well, with Neuralink, the aim is to use electromagnetic fields to prime neural pathways, and I'm putting this in super layman's terms. If there's any experts out there, do not quote me on this. But in essence, correcting those neural pathways, making sure they don't degenerate, and preventing these degenerative diseases. And it doesn't stop there. Robotics and coding is actually being implemented being used in medicine, and in particular, surgery. If there's any students out there who are very interested in, for example, studying to become a surgeon, one of the practical components is, of course, having a steady hand. In fact, it is a test that if your hands shake, you may not be suited for surgery. However, there may be some brilliant minds out there that are ready to contribute to the world of medicine that are being systematically shoved out because of that shaking. So precision saves lives. If you can have a device that could operate outside the room, and this is happening today, whereby you as a surgeon have studied to get to here and you're not held back by that, you can effectively save lives with your precision. And this is actually a grape being peeled without damaging the flesh underneath by these tiny robotic arms. Because if we showed actual surgery, it'd be a bit graphic, guys. Moving on from here, we're going to talk a little bit about agriculture. If you are considering a career in agriculture, or going into a similar field or similar business model, maybe around growing your own crops or harvesting your own plants, it's interesting to see the developments we've made in solving automation here. Essentially, speed, accuracy, and efficiency can really improve the yield of your crops. So if you are looking at trying to, for example, identify weeds, this particular bot here at the bottom left has been programmed to ride at high speeds over these crops and using machine learning, identify where there may be some weeds. and then systematically pick them out at a rapid rate, making sure that you preserve your crop. You think about the implications of maybe world hunger, making sure that nothing goes to waste is really quite an exciting prospect for your yield. Here at the top right, you can actually see the bot on the left has been fitted with a really cool arm. Now it's got an arm and an eye, and inside the eye it's been programmed to be able to detect ripeness by color, and then the arm, using hydraulics, and I believe it fills with liquid and a silicone head, actually can grip without damaging the fruit and test for ripeness. If you think about how we've got all those stickers in the shops that say, hey, by the way, don't push through the apples. So in essence, I maybe should have had this slide earlier on, robotics is the marriage between hardware and software. Through the courses you'll cover in the Academy, we're trying to take a look at both and the integration thereafter. But I want to encourage any of you who want to start out or who are maybe taking your AP Maths or your AP Science subjects and are thinking strongly about engineering or even medicine or law, is to say, okay, cool, I would love an introduction to robotics so that I can use that as leverage going into my tertiary institutions and say, okay, cool, how am I going to apply my mind? You can then branch off and go strictly into hardware or even into coding and software should you want to go into app development, IT, or data sciences. And I believe this is where, Michaela, you're going to talk a bit more about the Academy and the philosophy around what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, for sure, Jono. So I think that one thing that we didn't mention in the beginning, which I think would be relevant to note now, is that Advantage Learn and Resolute Robotics have teamed up to produce what is called the Robotics Academy. And the Robotics Academy is just such a cool space where learners can come between grades 8 to grade 12 and start learning the foundations of all these incredible things that Jono has been sharing and showing you. Because like he says, it's not impossible. It might seem a little bit daunting when you look at these things, but really it's just taking the first step towards learning how to build these incredible robots and computer science and all of these cool things. They sound quite far-fetched, but they can already be learned today, and it can be super fun because you're building incredible projects. And so just before we get going and started on talking more about what the Robotics Academy is and what you would do in that space, we just wanted to share a little bit about the philosophy behind the Robotics Academy. Really what it's there for is to start bridging gaps between your school learning and your tertiary education, so your university learning. Because I think there are a lot of kids out there who are future engineers, who are going to be building all these incredible tools. And currently there's no real way that you can learn those sorts of skills in school in your core subjects. And I'm sure that's going to change in the future. But until then, the Robotics Academy is a way to bridge the gap between school and your tertiary education. We are using it to also help you excel in your school subjects because you're thinking a little bit more broadly. You're thinking outside of your general scope in school. And it's causing you to think about the world around you in a different way. And then it's also extending you beyond what your peers are learning in school. It's a cool differentiator if you are applying for universities. So it's a really great way to differentiate yourself. And so the philosophy for the Robotics Academy is bridge gaps plus excel plus extend to the power of 4IR. And that is because we are preparing you for skills that you're going to be using in the fourth industrial revolution, which we are currently in, where jobs are changing and there are a lot of new skills that aren't being taught in the current school system that are so important for your future and your future careers. Cool, Jono. So I'm going to hand back over to you so you can walk us through this cool robotics kit.
Thank you, Michaela. I think what's so exciting about that philosophy is that you can start learning towards those tertiary institutions. And Advantage Learn, in partnership with Resolute, we're actually looking at getting pre-qualified credits so that through our courses, you'd actually arrive at university with some pre-credits, which we've got in the pipeline. But yes, of course, in essence, in the ideal world, we've adopted robotics and coding as a curriculum, and we're completing these wonderful projects. What's important to also note is that these projects will not hinder, but actually assist your other core subjects in covering coding, in covering mathematics and sciences. It really should be viewed as a supplementary course that could really boost your academics and in fact even motivate some studying when maybe you're really thinking, oh, I've got to go through those sequences again, but at least at the end of the day, my project will come to life. And one of those projects that we're going to cover is obviously the beginner advanced course. Beginner advanced course, despite the name, is an excellent place to get started through the academy into your world of robotics and coding. Every concept we cover builds on fundamental principles of input, process, and output. You think in terms of the human body. I'm seeing these slides. That's the input. I'm recognizing that I've seen these before. That's the process. And I'm speaking on what I understand of what I'm seeing. And that is, of course, the output. In principle, I did cover early on that imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. And in robotics, we're attempting to imitate certain incredible things that we as human beings or as animals already achieve in our day-to-day. Every beginner/advanced course starts with something called the fundamentals of electric circuits, simulations, and Arduino programming. I want to draw your attention specifically to this course because it's crucial that you understand that no matter your background, if you've ever seen coding or not, this is the perfect place for you to get started. It covers all the fundamentals of coding and robotics necessary to complete the subsequent courses. No prerequisites are required. I repeat, no prerequisites are required. If you've taught yourself some coding languages, maybe through YouTube, or you've seen some tutorials, power to you, that's awesome. You'll find that this will build on some similar concepts, but the world of coding is so vast. There are so many languages that the skill set you're learning is fantastic. With us, you'll be mainly using C-based programming, C#, C++, and Python as we go through courses. I just want to check, there we go. After you've moved on from the fundamentals, you'll be going into our first module, which is the autonomous line following Rover. The autonomous line following Rover is in fact a second-year university module. And in fact, it was probably covered by Rajesh and Garrett when they were having this conversation about introducing robotics and coding into schools. What it essentially is in fact, I've got it here, I can show you guys, is 3 infrared sensors piloted at the front. These 3 infrared sensors serve different functions. The ones on the peripherals, i.e. the left and the right, are programmed to avoid certain colors, and the one in the middle is used to seek out certain colors. And in this particular use case, we're obviously trying to stay and follow a black line around a track. Infrared essentially uses light theory. It is bouncing light off certain colors. Every color you see here on the screen or around your room is actually just a return of certain values in the color spectrum, while the extremes are black versus white, one reflecting the most light and one absorbing the most light to navigate around a track and engage motors, something that we probably take for granted when we think about the mechanics around self-driving cars, but in essence, how brilliant that these eyes of the car are engaging the motors accordingly to travel around the track. We then go into our next module, which is the software module. I know it's off to the right, but bear with me, where we start to experiment with that software touch point of programming. Building your own video games. I know if I was in high school still, which wasn't too long ago, I promise, I would have loved the opportunity to design my own video games. So if there's any aspiring video game designers out there, feel free to reach out because I can put you in contact with maybe some apprenticeships. But what's super exciting about the world of video game design is there's 2 major software warehouses right now and programs you can use. There's Unity and there's Unreal Engine. I would wager that if you play something on your cell phone, it's likely been built in Unity or maybe Swift if you go through the Apple App Store. And then if you've played some major titles, the majority of them are developed on Unreal Engine. In fact, they just released, I think, Unreal Engine 5 a couple of months ago, which is truly insane. These are built on the fundamentals of video game theory, which breaks it right down to programming in C# and Python. In fact, if you do go on to use Unity, do some more maybe academy courses down the line in years to come, you will be actually using C-based programming. Once you've learned the fundamentals of building your own video game atmosphere in Visual Studio, going to any of these design houses is going to be a walk in the park. It really does teach you the fundamentals that a lot of people who just jump into these softwares take for granted. Right, and then Michaela, it is back to you to describe the actual academy and how it's going to roll out. Oh, before I finish, in your kits there is of course a bonus module that we're going to be completing, which is the RFID Tag Module. This RFID Tag Module dependent on your rollout. Michaela will speak more into it, can be completed of your own fruition. And that uses RFID tag and data sciences to build essentially your own gym, your own corporate space, or even your own university if you're used to tagging in and out, and actually starts to build some data sciences, especially for my maths kids with my business, seeing the frequency of people going in and out of a certain classroom. I've even had students who've used it at home to scan in mom and dad and say, hey, listen, you were out between X and Y, Z, what gives? And it's really cool that we explore those concepts as well in the bridging course. Now, Michaela, of course, over to you.
Lovely. Okay, cool. So as Jono mentioned, you guys will be building some incredible projects. We've got the autonomous line following car, which you can see up there on the screen. And Jono also showed you a live version of that. You are also going to be building this access control module using RFID tags. And so that is another really exciting project. We then are going to be teaching you something towards a surprise project. So that is yet to be revealed. And I think Jono was a little nervous that he was
thank goodness. I was so worried I was going to say the wrong one. Okay, we're good.
Yes, so we are keeping one a surprise. We like to keep you in suspense. And I think it's so cool that there's something that's hidden that you are going to discover halfway through the program. We also have game development, as Jono shared. That's going to be taught via video lessons, so pre-recorded online video lessons, where you'll be able to come to Gareth, who's going to be teaching you. He's going to be your educator for the course, and you will be able to do some checks with him on a monthly basis, where he will review your code and check your game and see how you're tracking in terms of progress, and he can answer any questions that you have. And so it's a really brilliant program in that you're learning all the fundamentals, which I didn't add as a module here, but that is one of them. It's the fundamentals that you're going to need. And then you're going to take that knowledge and actually build something with it that you can keep and take home. So that is really important to note. So Jono, you can move on to the next section. So just to give you a quick overview of the Robotics Academy. So the Robotics Academy is taught via live online lessons. And what that means is exactly what we are doing here. We are chatting with you on Zoom. This is how your lessons are presented with the person who's teaching you. We also have someone who's available there on support, so we can ensure that all of these lessons are as smooth as possible. It's important to note that the Robotics Academy isn't grade specific, but we do recommend that you are in grade 8 to 12 if you are wanting to join the Robotics Academy. You can also join outside of school if you'd like to. If you're wondering whether you should be thinking about studying something along the lines of engineering or computer sciences or that sort of thing, this is a really nice way to check that. And if you are studying something else but you just find this interesting, that's also a really nice way to just exercise that side of your brain and to learn something new. The live lessons take place on a weekly basis. It is divided into 2 semesters, so the year is split into 2 halves, and you will have breaks in between. We do follow a school termly calendar. We try and also stick as far as possible to aligning with 3-term school calendars if you are in a 3-term school. We do that as far as we possibly can. And it's just to make sure that we're aligning to your school rhythms. But also, just as a side note, these lessons do take place outside of school hours, which I'm sure you can see there, from 5:30 to 7 o'clock on a Wednesday evening. And so that just makes sure that we're not clashing with your school subjects and potentially even not clashing with any extramurals you might have, hence the time there. It's also important to note that it's a 1-year program, so not a heavy commitment from your side. You don't need to worry that you've got to carry this subject through from grade 8 to grade 12. You do it over 1 year, and it's just a really nice way to get a comprehensive introduction into robotics and computer science. Just one more thing to note there is that you will be given access to an online course. Your online course is really cool because it includes the recordings of your live lessons. So the live lessons that you're attending on a weekly basis, you will easily be able to revisit those, revisit some of the slides or the lesson notes or any worksheets that you covered during the lesson will all be on your online course. But you will also get access to pre-recorded video lessons via a separate course where you will be able to review a lot of the lessons that you're going to go through during your program, as well as the lessons that you can complete as your computer science module, where you're completing that at your own pace. And so you can really stretch that out over the year and plan it in line with your school schedule and also your Robotics Academy schedule. Okay, so we like to be nice and transparent in these and share the pricing just so you know upfront. The Robotics Kit from Resolute is 2,811 Rand. That is included in the total price of the Robotics Academy, which you can see there, 9,640 Rand. And really what you're getting, like I say, is all sorts of things. You got the online course, you've got the video access, you've got this robotics kit, which has the projects that you're going to be able to keep at home and take away with you. It's a really nice takeaway. The lessons, like I say, we've got a partnership going, so the lessons are conducted via Advantage Learn. You're using the Advantage Learn platform, but the lessons are delivered from the experts themselves, the instructors from Resolute, and they created this robotics kit. And so it's a really cool partnership that we have going where we can both lean on our skills and give you the best possible Robotics Academy out there. Okay, so just to give you a nice proper overview of what you're getting for that price that you saw there, you're going to be getting a completion certificate. I think that's really helpful because when you go and apply at various universities, you will have a key takeaway that you can add to your application, and it's just a nice way to show that you've committed to a year program and you completed it. There are also semesterly assessments, and you will be getting feedback from your educator, and so that's also an important one. We are tracking how you're performing in this program and making sure that you're able to improve upon that throughout. The pre-recorded video lessons, the weekly live lessons, like I said, are also included. You will also be able to access online support via WhatsApp. So we have class WhatsApp groups. We really believe in learners interacting with each other as well as the teacher. I feel like you can learn so much from each other as well as your educator. So the educator is there to guide and monitor the WhatsApp group and make sure that no one's going off track. But also you are able to interact with your classmates in an online setting via that group. And then finally, as I mentioned, we've got that optional holiday project that you can complete in your own time, at your own pace and at your own time throughout the year. And feedback will be provided to you from the teacher. Yeah, I just wanted to share with you how you can apply for the Robotics Academy. You can head on over to advantagelearn.com, make sure to select Academy from the subject list, and then navigate to the Robotics Academy page. The Robotics Academy is a program where we collect applications. We do want to make sure that the candidates who are on the program are prime candidates. So we don't believe that everyone should just get into this program, and that's a great thing because it just means that the quality of the lessons are super high and you are getting the best of the best. And so before I just leave you with those instructions, I would rather pop the link to the robotics page so you can see all this information on that page. It's also a nice way for you to revisit what we've already covered now. And yeah, you're welcome to visit that page. If you do have any questions for us, please pop them in the chat or even in the Q&A, and we are excited to answer them. If you're joining us on Facebook, I am watching the Facebook comments, and I'm also happy to answer any questions on there. So just pop us a comment and we will get back to you.
I would encourage you guys to not be shy. There's a payment terms question that's come through.
Awesome. Okay, so what we do have is the option to pay semesterly. So you can split that payment into two. However, we do need to pay for the box upfront because of course we are sending you that box. And so that box is included in your semester 1 price, and then your semester 2 price will be slightly cheaper than that, just purely because we are charging you then for the lessons. So I hope that's helpful. Please clarify, do you need to be able to be live for the input sessions, or can you view at a convenient time, thinking of school pupils? So you are welcome to watch the recordings of the live lessons, but of course it is highly recommended that you join the live lessons because that way you're able to interact with the class as well as the educator, and of course ask the questions as they come up in your class. We also do have at random interims throughout the year lessons that are extended a little bit longer where you can stay on to speak to the educator one-on-one. And so those are the sorts of things that you'd be missing by taking this purely in an online kind of fashion. But if you do miss 1 or 2 lessons throughout the year, that is perfectly fine because the lessons are always recorded, so you'll always be able to refer back to them. Okay.
How soon could they get their kits if they are based in Durban? I think so. In our partnership with Advantage Loan, per your registration, we would make sure that you get your kit within the next 2 to 3 weeks in time for your lessons. What's wonderful though is that the kit is not required for the first lesson. It's not required for the first lesson. In fact, there may be 2 or 3 that we do as introductory courses before you'll require actual kits. So if you want to sign up today and you're worried that you won't be able to participate next week, it's absolutely not to worry. You can get started. Then, of course, is it possible to purchase the kit through Advantage Loan? I'm not 100% sure if you can, but I would encourage you to email us through on our support line and ask if you can require the kit. But I would encourage you and push you towards the live classes, because I think taking the approach with a guided learning curve is just really so incredible. And in fact, your tutor himself, if we speak to rather than your entrepreneurial angle towards working with people like Elon Musk, Gareth himself actually started this company and he's your tutor. And what's really incredible about him is he's severely dyslexic with the written word as well as numbers. And he thought, how am I ever going to get into a tertiary institution with this skill set? And when he first saw his first line of code, it actually just took in his brain, and for some reason his brain could make sense of it, so much so that actually got him to boost his marks and study twice as hard as everybody else to make sure he got to university. So I think it's an incredible opportunity to have his time while it's available, because I don't know how long we'll be able to keep him in that seat, given how incredible his trajectory really is. And then, can we ever meet our tutors personally at any point in time? I think
whether it is possible to purchase the kit without being part of the program. And so, Jono, I think you can speak to that, but I'm 95% sure that the kit is on Takealot.
I believe it is. I would have to double check with my team to make sure, but there is ways that you can find it as a vendor, either on Takealot or through us directly. Yeah, if you really wanted to do so, I think you could. I've had a look at your site. How do I know which is the right course to sign up for as a grade 8 student? Well, what's wonderful about our 3 streams, Depth, Beginner, and Advanced, is they're really grade and age agnostic. I would say to the students, pick what looks most exciting. And in my personal opinion, what we're offering for your learners through the Academy is an incredibly exciting course, that advanced course with the autonomous line following Rover, the RFID Tag Modules, and of course the Python video game development course. What's important to note about Python video game development, Python is the world's leading and most popular language in coding at present, because it is highly adaptable. And if you are really considering, pursuing something within those fields, having your foundational knowledge rooted in Python can only serve you in the future. Is Delphi accepted as a coding language? So people are divided on Delphi as a coding course in school. What I would say is, if you're taking it as a subject in your school, there is nothing wrong with it, because it is learning fundamental principles of coding. If you think about it, language operates very much in the same way in the spoken word. There are certain sounds that you constitute as vowels and others you constitute as consonants, and certain noises mean certain things. Different languages are used for different things to be done more effectively. In the case of robotics, we have a whole bunch of different coding languages. Some are really diverse and some can do multiple functions, and some are really tailored. For example, HTML is used to structure and index a website, whereas CSS is used to give it an aesthetic finish and make it look really attractive. In the case of Delphi, many educators feel that it is slowly being outdated and it is likely to be replaced with something like C# or Python in the near future. If your school offers Delphi in class, you can ask your IT teacher how they feel about Delphi and they'll let you know, but it's at least teaching you the fundamental principles so that a course like robotics makes sense. Feel free to get in contact with Advantage Learner. We're such a proud partner of them and what they're trying to achieve. We're preparing the youth to go into our tertiary institutions and make sure that we are closing that gap so that you are covering relevant skill sets before you even step into your first lecture hall. So I would strongly consider it as an option if you're thinking, am I going to be ready for engineering? Is it going to be too much to get into? And then of course, is Delphi accepted as a coding language? One last question. Are any of the accepted languages RADS? I'm afraid that I don't know what RADS means. Is it a language in of itself? If it is a language, fantastic. I would say when you say accepted, I'm not fully aware of what you mean. There are over, I think, 3,000 coding languages presently, and you could actually develop your own. There's a few silly ones out there. One's called Moo, where it's binary, but they're all cow moves. So if you are currently learning a different coding language, one that I haven't mentioned, if it happens to be, RADS or RADS, the fundamental principles you're learning, the skills about, loops, if-then statements, forevers, and starts, those are all concepts that will translate into other coding languages, regardless of the language itself. It will help you in the long run. RAD usually embrace object-oriented programming methodology, which inherently fosters software reuse. The most popular object-oriented programming languages are C++, which is covered, and Java, offered in visual programming packages, often described as providing rapid application development. So we do offer Java, C#, or C++. The Arduino-based programming uses C-based programming. So if you're going to be using our microcontroller to make your autonomous line following Rover or RFID Tag Module, it's a fundamental component in the fundamentals module. You will be then, by virtue of your definition, grappling with concepts with RADS.
Do you have any in-class courses or only online at the moment?
That would entirely depend, I think, on your school. I know that we do offer extramural extra activities. So if you want to say to your school after this, hey, could we please offer coding and robotics, please feel free to get in touch with us. We run, I think we're in over 120 schools at the moment, Resolute Education, and that's a mix between in-curriculum and extramural. Or we do have Advantage Learn working on their wing of actually doing live classes in the afternoon at your school, which is a wonderful way to consider it the best of both worlds. All right, Mike, Jonathan, all lowercase, at resolute.education. I think I can pop it here in the bottom. Jonathan, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Don't share my email with your friends. No, I'm kidding. What I'd say, guys, is there's no silly question around robotics and coding. If you do have any questions where you just want to know about where the world's heading or where different coding and robotics projects are headed, I have a team of dedicated researchers and developers who are working on the coolest environments, from doing projects in VR, considering what we can achieve with the metaverse, even blockchain sciences. In fact, I know Advantage Learn actually had a talk on that towards the tail end of last year. So with robotics and coding, the world really is your oyster. It's more about your creativity. What could you achieve, which you considered unachievable? But yeah, there you go. Go for it. Just note that I check my email during office hours.
Just to let everyone know, if you are joining us on Facebook Live, we are going to shut down the Facebook Live now. But please feel free to pop us a message on Facebook and we can answer any questions that you have. If you're viewing this live video after the fact, please feel free to also do that. Pop us a message. We will be able to respond to you. We can share any information you're looking for. Okay.